Gone were the days when farm workers, seasonal or not, are able to at least provide for themselves and their families without drowning on indebtedness. Here in Nueva Ecija, the so-called rice granary of the Philippines, farm mechanization has taken its toll on them, being the first to be gravely affected by the increasing number of machineries that are now being utilized in the fields. The adversity it has caused is as palpable to this day, adding to the fact that government support programs of the tasked agencies in the agricultural sector do not include them. Good day. I am Army Carranza from Guimba, Nueva Ecija, and we are Radyo Natin, Guimba. This is a story of the situation of the families of the seasonal farm workers here in Guimba, where laborers of the land represent 70% of its population. No own lands to till, and only possess the skills to plow, plant, and manage the fields. A sad yet truly inspiring story of who they are, the kind of life they are living in these already difficult times. Is there going to be a future that await them and the generations that will come?
Ako si Ray Rodriguez.
My name is Ray Rodriguez, and I am the chairperson of the Liga ng Manggagawang Bukid. In the past, during a harvest season like this, when farm laborers like me are the ones harvesting and reaping the fields, we are able to earn enough to support our families. But when the combine harvesters started to appear, we lost a significant part of our livelihood. It felt cataclysmic. We will never be able to get it back. We were left to cope on how to live. Most of us are hired during palay planting season transplanting. Some of us become palay trade and machine porters. Some are hired in construction. A lot of us, after a harvest season, pick the grains that's left by the harvesting machines and collect just enough to be milled into rice so we could have food. Our lives, as it is hard enough. We had to work twice as hard to earn just enough. But like salt being poured into our bleeding injury, it's become much harder to keep our livelihood. And we're afraid that we will no longer be able to escape this impoverished state. Mr. Ray Rodriguez has been the president of the Farm Workers Association, LMB, or Liga ng Manggagawang Bukid in Guimba since the year 2016, handling about more than 4,000 members. He led the group's fight against the government's neglect of their class as though they were not part of the agricultural sector and their struggle for the protection of their livelihood. In a village called Bagong Barrio here in Guimba lives Rogelio Daileg, a 57-year-old seasonal farm worker. Rogelio is an epitome of a typical farm worker in a rural town. A son of a farmer who turned into a farm worker, Rogelio, like his father, has nothing but his skills to cultivate lands for other farm owners. His only choice? Having no higher educational background and no other professional skill set, is to work relentlessly as a farm laborer during planting season, and then work as a fisherman, and sometimes as a contractual construction worker, just to put food on their table. My wife and I, our livelihood depends on the planting season of palay. We go from one place to another, hired by farmland owners to transplant palay seedlings to the fields. When planting season is over, I become a fisherman. There is a river near here called Palestina, and it has become our source of food and income. The fish I catch, around 3 kilos, sometimes 5. At times I sell them, some other time I trade it for rice. It is mostly not enough to feed my family. Because of the arrival and widespread utilization of the combine harvesters, I had to take any kind of job just to earn money. Wherever labor is needed, even if it's not in the farm, if I get hired, I grab the opportunity so my family can survive. In another small village called Yuzon lives Boy Facunla, a farmer who used to till his own farmland. He was an ARB, an agrarian reform beneficiary of the then President Ferdinand Marcos Sr.'s land reform program. The small parcel of farmland that was awarded to him has long been gone, with the burden of continuous debts, increasing prices of farm inputs, widespread poverty, and the inadequate support programs from the government to the agricultural sector. He had to let it go. He used it as a loan collateral and then eventually sold it. Why do you think farmers like yourself continue to face poverty? I used to have a farm of my own, but because of circumstances I could not avoid like yield losses, calamities, and inflation, along with family needs like my kids' education and unwanted hospitalizations, I lost it. I used this only property I have as collateral to borrow money that I was never able to afford to pay, until finally, giving it up is the only choice I had to pay for my debts and avoid being buried in interests. It wasn't like the old times when during palay harvest season, we earned plenty. Palay prices were not as low as today, and small farmers can earn additional income from working in the other fields when manpower is still involved and is a necessity. It's different nowadays, especially that mechanized machineries are already thriving. Now I am a landless farmer, a farm laborer, hired as a helper of another landowner and earn only a percentage of its yield when harvested. Before planting season starts, because I do not have any other means to earn apart from planting vegetables, I had to borrow money from my landlord to give support to my family while I render my services. Come harvest season, the sad thing is, because my compensation after the harvest is just enough to pay for the money I borrowed, nothing is left for me to take home. This cycle is endless. I know for a fact that the support we get from the government is not enough, and I feel that we do not get any genuine assistance from them. If only farmers like me are given full support, no conditions, no exceptions, I and other agrarian reform beneficiaries like me would have been able to manage not losing our farmlands. From being a farm owner, unwillingly turned into a seasonal farm worker, Kaboy is now a mere hired helper in a farm. And to augment his meager earnings, he rents a small piece of land to grow vegetables he can sell before a new cropping season begins. Doing these are not enough, and survival is still as difficult. At the age of 66, even when his body almost couldn't handle the labor anymore, in his mind, he can't stop for the sake of his family. Then and now, Rogelio and Boy are a representation of seasonal farm workers here in Guimba, and even in the province or the country. Promoting farm mechanization meant improvement in advancement of agriculture, but also equated to the abandonment of the laborers. For this reason, the Liga ng Manggagawang Bukid or LMB, an association of farm workers in Guimba, was created. It was year 2014 when farm workers united with one goal: to protect their livelihood. It was around the same year when farmland owners have started to hire combine harvesters to harvest palay in their fields. The group immediately demanded that the farm workers still be used as manpower to reap the fields during harvest season. and that a limitation must be given to the operation of the combined harvesters. This resulted to the enactment of a local ordinance, the Municipal Ordinance Number 5 Series of 2014. It was designed to limit the machine's operation and gave the farm workers the opportunity to continuously earn from their main livelihood, but it failed. Its provision that should have protected the farm workers was not enforced.
Ano ang nagtulak sa grupo niyo?
What prompted your group to question the ordinance that regulated the operation of the combined harvesters?
Nakasaad doon sa ordinansa ay
The provisions of the Municipal Ordinance Number 5 were clear. Operation of the combined harvesters will be limited. We still get to earn our keep and reap majority of the agricultural lands in Guimba using our labor. Notwithstanding the ordinance, combined harvesters thrived. They operated behind it to try and mitigate its effect on our livelihood and somehow protect our source of income. We conducted demonstrations as well as series of dialogues with the Municipal Council of Guimba that led them to creating a task force to enforce the existing ordinance. We hoped it would make a difference, but what happened was the opposite. The combined harvesters continued to reap the fields and the local law that was passed did not in any way take effect. Year 2016, despite the farm workers' displacement from the introduction of mechanized farm equipments, and the government showing no clear plans to address the situation, LMB decided that they will not be silenced and they will bring to the fore the continuous negative implications of farm mechanization. It was DSWD, the Department of Social Welfare and Development, under the then Secretary Judy Tagiwalo, who responded to their call for support. LMB demanded that they become part of the agency's SLP, or Sustainable Livelihood Project, through the awarding of a communal farming project. One of the member villages of LMB where the SLP has been successfully implemented is Barangay Santa Lucia. The members here are continuously receiving the benefits of the said project.
Dito na naman tayo para
We're back here in Sitio Kadokturan in Barangay Santa Lucia. Today is the schedule of our rice distribution to LMB members here in our village. We are gathered to share the fruit of our labor from the communal farming, the Sustainable Livelihood Project that the DSWD granted. This is the 7th distribution schedule after the agency's intervention in 2019. From the 5,000 square meters farmland that was mortgaged to us using the funds from the agency's SLP, we were able to produce 57 cavans of palay in this year's wet season. Minus the expenses and the savings we would need for the next cropping, we came up with 9 bags of rice to be distributed. 53 member families were able to take home 7.5 kilos of rice. It's not much, but for the families who received it, it is altogether significant. A great help to us farm laborers who basically lost our primary source of living. We wouldn't have to worry about food for a few days. Even when we had to fight and push for being a beneficiary, being one of the 49 SLPs to the entire association in Guimba is very helpful. We consider it as a successful partnership between us and the DSWD, but we admit it's not sufficient. While we will not stop fighting to protect our livelihood, here we are appealing to our government, especially the Department of Agriculture, to provide us with additional form of livelihood. We are slowly losing our original sources of income, but we still have our skills, our perseverance, and determination, and we will continue to be diligent, worthy of the support that we will be given. The struggle for the farm workers' just and legitimate demands is a never-ending process. So, to become a legitimate representation of the farm workers in the municipality, LMB registered the association to the SEC, or the Securities and Exchange Commission, year 2019. In 2020, in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, another ordinance was proposed and later on approved by the Municipal Council. Here, a certain amount of tax will be collected from the combined harvester owners reaping the farms by the barangay officials within their jurisdiction. The collection thereafter will be utilized as relief for the indigent residents, especially the displaced farm workers.
Paano nyo naman nalaman na...
How did your association find out about the new ordinance that was filed?
Kasi inanyayahan kami nung sangguniang bayan.
LMB was invited during one of the final deliberations before the enactment of this newly formed ordinance. As the LMB leader, I stood up and expressed my concern. Will this law be different from the first one that was passed? The law that was supposed to protect our livelihood but failed. With our experiences in the past, we were apprehensive. We were indignant. Farm laborers being used as the beneficiaries, we felt that our situation is being taken advantage of. The ordinance's purpose is to collect taxes for our sake, the landless and the displaced. But come implementation, we are forgotten, dismissed. It hurts us when some of the officials even say there were no efforts from our end, so we do not deserve to receive any kind of assistance. In theory, if we believe them, the provisions of the Municipal Ordinance Number 27 can serve our best interest. But in reality, like the first one, the rules were not followed. We waited more than a year for its full implementation in our respective villages, but it didn't come. So LMB decided that this is not acceptable. We filed a complaint yet again to the Guimba Town Council and submitted a sworn statement stating that there were villages that do not implement the ordinance and that farm laborers haven't received any relief and assistance from the village councils in accordance to the said provisions. Because of this, more hearings were conducted. This time, they admitted their negligence and we were proven right. In the end, we were promised again that the implementation of the ordinance will be strictly implemented, both by the municipal and barangay councils. We will be watching. As the struggle to fight for the protection of their livelihood continue, the determination and solidarity of LMB as a group were also being tested. The challenge continued as they intensified their call to be recognized as part of the agricultural sector and are equally and rightfully entitled to the programs of the Department of Agriculture. It was 2021 when they learned that farm workers and not only farmers are allowed to enroll in RSBSA, or the registry system for basic sectors in agriculture. The government's list of farmers, fisherfolk, and farm laborers that serves as a targeting mechanism for the identification of beneficiaries of different programs of government agencies, especially the DA. Notwithstanding the scope of the RSBSA, LMB had to step in and question why the local agriculture office chose not to include and even deny them the enrollment. They had to seek help from a higher office for their registration to be accepted. Their initiative and diligence in pursuing RSBSA membership, despite the oppositions and obstacles, paved the way for about 6,000 applications of farm laborers being submitted.
Ano sa tingin nyo ang dahilan ba?
What do you think is the reason why you were not recruited to become part of RSBSA?
Tanong ko nga yan sa kanila eh.
I don't really know the answer to that. I am certainly not the right person to be asked that question and explain the answer. To be honest, I asked the same question to one of the top officials of the Department of Agriculture when I had the chance last year. I asked, which agency are we under? Why are we not included in the programs of this department? Because as far as we are concerned, we are part of the agricultural sector and we belong to the jurisdiction of this agency. That day, I was told that we are indeed under the care of the DA and we have always been entitled to enroll in RSBSA. Our municipal agriculturist then promised that our application will be facilitated, and that was good enough for us. We waited, but the promise, like any other promises we were given, were deliberately broken. We couldn't wait any longer, so we took the initiative to enroll ourselves, sought the help of the regional field office every time we get setbacks from our own local government unit and restraint from our own village officials. It's about time that we are recognized as part of the agricultural sector and be entitled with the same support programs and assistance being given to farmers. We are, after all, partners in producing the staple food that this country consumes. If we do not work hard in making things like these happen, in letting ourselves be heard, we will have no chance to survive. The Department of Agriculture Region 3 Field Office RSBSA focal person, Mr. Alvin David, explained the registration process for farm workers or laborers in RSBSA. While he mentioned that the said enrollment is not mandatory, he expressed that LMB's initiative is a strategic move because being registered is the basic requirement of government's assistance to the agricultural sector. He further explained that the completion of the registration does not mean immediate reception of any kind of support. The intervention will still depend on the programs that the agencies will provide. LMB had the opportunity to consult with Mr. David regarding the issues they encountered during the registration process. He made a commitment that their office, together with the provincial office, will provide assistance in facilitating the registration and will continue to coordinate with the LGU Guimba and its Municipal Agriculturist Office, or MAO, to hasten the registration. He wants to make sure that all the issues are addressed and resolved so that the farm workers will be able to smoothly go through with the process. Mr. David also promised that the application forms for the farm workers will be provided so they wouldn't need to have it photocopied and avoid unnecessary expenses. While the LMB group headed the entire enrollment for the farm workers and laborers in the municipality, officials from the DA, provincial, and regional offices came down to mediate and assist on the issues about the village heads and MAO's hesitancy in signing the application forms. One good thing that this initiative of LMB ensued was giving awareness to other seasonal farm workers and laborers from other towns in Nueva Ecija that they are entitled to be enlisted in RSBSA.
Sino ba yung pasok ng mga manggagawang bukid?
Who are considered farm workers or farm laborers when it comes to enrolling in RSBSA?
Yung guidelines po natin sa RSBSA.
In the RSBSA guidelines, farm workers or laborers were defined using the definition section of Republic Act No. 6657, also known as the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Law of 1988. Those who fall under this definition can enroll in RSBSA. Moreover, an individual who is enrolled in RSBSA as a farmer can separately enroll his or her family members as an individual farm worker if they provide labor in tilling or cultivating the land that he owns. All the applications, regardless of which category they apply to, will go through validation and verification by their respective barangays and the Municipal Agriculture Office of the LGU.
Ano nga ba ang kahalagahan?
What is the importance of being registered in RSBSA?
Ito po ay basic requirement.
Being registered and encoded in the database are basic requirements in availing agri-interventions that will come from the government primarily the Department of Agriculture and its attached agencies. This means, if a support program or any project is proposed and created, being listed in the registry will always be the main criteria. It is essentially constant, as the registry is the targeting tool for identification of the beneficiaries.
Paano matitiyak, sir, na
How can an applicant confirm if they are already registered in RSBSA?
Pagka-enroll po ni farmer or ni farm laborer,
After filling out the form and submitting the appropriate requirements for the selected category, it will undergo validation. Once this process is complete, the enrollee will be given a stub containing the RSBSA code. The processed form will be sent to us here in the regional office in Pampanga and will be encoded in the Farmers and Fisherfolk Registry System, an organized database of the basic sectors in agriculture. We provide an updated list of the individuals that were successfully encoded in the database to the Municipal Agriculturist Office. The enrollees can follow up anytime after their successful application.
so ano po ang mga requirements naman?
What are the requirements in applying for RSBSA membership?
sa manggagawang bukid naman po,
In the case of farm workers or laborers, since they are defined as landless, they are not required to attach proof of land ownership. They just need to attach their valid IDs and certification from the village chief that they are legitimate resident farm workers. It is also important that they select the correct category and involvement in the sector. In their case, they need to check the option for farm workers or laborers. Otherwise, the application forms will be invalid and will be returned to the LGU for correction and updating.
Sir Alvin, nakakaramdam po kasi sila ng na parang sila ay naiichapuera.
Here in Guimba, the farm laborers experienced being left out of this government initiative because there was no drive that came from the local government nor the local DA's office. In fact, the municipal agriculturist herself did not know that they are allowed to enroll in the said registry.
binaba po namin yung guidelines ng RSBSA.
When we released the guidelines for the RSBSA program, we were clear that everyone that will fall under the categories identified can enroll. In fact, in our current database, there are enrollees from other parts of Central Luzon that are farm laborers and agri-youth, and not just farmers and fisherfolk. Personally, I cannot speak for the process that was being implemented in the locality, but one reason that could have slowed the application down or hindered it was the office's limited personnel. The ratio per agri-extension worker to farmers or farm workers might have been overwhelming. So there is a possibility that they prioritized the farmer's application and planned to enroll the farm workers next. It may have been difficult for them to do it simultaneously.
Meron na po ba kayong mga programa,
Does the Department of Agriculture have available programs for farm laborers?
Halos sa mga magsasaka po sa ngayon yung mga programa.
As of now, as far as I know, there are no specific programs yet for farm laborers. Most of the programs are for farmers. I would not be able to personally provide information on what the next programs will be, if there will be any, for the farm workers or laborers. The important thing right now is for their registration to be completed, so that come the time that there are initiatives specific for them that will come out, they are already in the registry and their qualifications will be easier. Danilo Ramos, also known as Kadaning, is the overall chairperson of Kilusang Magbubukid ng Pilipinas, a national organization that promotes the welfare and rights of the members of the agricultural sector. Kadaning provided a comprehensive definition of who farm workers and farm laborers are, their relevance, and what roles they perform when it comes to food production in the country. He explained the organization's point of view to the existing question of LMB as to why they are being left out from the government support programs. He remarked that there is obviously already very limited support programs to the farmers themselves. So how can it provide more to the other members of the sector like the farm workers or laborers? Kadaning stated that the situation of the farm laborers in the bigger picture is not far from what the farmers are experiencing. The programs that the government claims that cater the needs as well as protection of the agricultural sector in the country is nowhere near beneficial to them nor provides real solution to their problem. They haven't been able to service the poor farmers, farm workers, and fisher folk, which essentially constitutes majority of its population.
Kadaning, lumalaki ang bilang ng mga manggagawang bukid. Sila ba ay bahagi ng o kasama sa sektor ng magsasaka?
Kadaning, are the farm workers or laborers part of the agricultural sector? Why do you think they are not being included in the programs of the Department of Agriculture? Farm workers and the farmers are partners in the agricultural food production like rice, corn, coconut, and etc. So why? Why are they not being included? That is actually the big question. It is the elephant in the room that needed to be addressed. As it is, the support programs and the services of the agency to the sector that produces food for the Filipinos are already very limited. The important role of farm laborers have always been neglected, and in KMP's point of view, they should be given equal importance and recognition. Even the 13.6 million people registered in RSBSA do not receive substantial support. In fact, not everyone that's part of this registry receive assistance from the government. In a report that was shown last 2020, during the COVID-19 pandemic, only 900,000 farmers and farm workers, if there were even any, were provided with aid. That number was only roughly 7% of the said RSBSA list. This means that even in the government's data, the support being provided to the agricultural sector is next to nothing.
Ano po ang masasabi nyo sa agricultural mechanization?
What can you say about the government's promotion of agricultural mechanization, it being the reason of the displacement of the farmers and farm workers alike?
Ang sinasabing mechanization,
The program is not comprehensive and does not have the right context. It also does not fit the framework of implementing a genuine land reform program and national industrialization. It is important that we understand why displacements occur. This happens because of widespread land use conversion, land grabbing, as well as crop conversion. Agricultural lands being used to grow staple food are being converted into different types for different uses. The government has no clear and specific policy or platform on how to protect these agricultural lands, which should essentially safeguard the country's food security. In reality, today, even in the past, farm mechanization does not truly benefit small farmers and farm laborers. These so-called machineries are largely being controlled by landlords and selected wealthy farmers who constitute only 5% of the agricultural population in the country. In a larger perspective, for agricultural mechanization to become beneficial to majority of the farmers and farm workers alike, there must also be rural development. These two will always be connected.
Bakit ang pamilyang magsasaka na naging beneficiary ng land reform?
Why do you think farmers who are agrarian reform beneficiaries become farm worker or laborers?
PD27, Carpet-Carper,
All the land reform programs of the government, like the Presidential Decree number 27, Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program, and the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program Extension with Reforms, including the split project or the support to parcelization of lands for individual titling project that is currently being implemented, do not truly serve the interests of the majority of the agricultural sector.
Ano po yung nakikita niyong solution sa mga nabanggit na problema?
Do you see any solution to the problems that the farm laborers are facing? And can you think of any other possible interventions that the government can provide them?
Talaga po na ipinakita sa maraming taon.
It has been proven in the past years until now that the programs of the government have failed in the aspect of land reform laws as well as support programs and initiatives. What we need is a new land reform that is genuine and will serve the majority of the Filipino farmers and farm workers. Additionally, the existing laws that have no direct benefit to the small farmers and actually has shown that they are anti-poor must be reviewed, if not repealed, like the rice liberalization law, or is more popularly known as the rice tariffication law. Kadaning concluded that the only solution to the problem of the agricultural sector is a genuine land reform program and national industrialization. He stressed that unity and cooperation of this sector will have a vital role in achieving this goal. The growth in the number of farm laborers today are not by choice. The life they have been accustomed to and the life they have been floundered on are both mired in poverty. Will this be the life that they will leave for their future generations? I am Amarc reporting from Guimba, Nueva Ecija, and this is Radyo Natin, Guimba. This program is a ComDev Asia production for the United Nations Decade of Family Farming in collaboration with Amarc Asia Pacific and the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations.